Hello, friends. We are back with episode 173 of the Our Weekly Highlights podcast. This is the weekly podcast where we talk about the terrific resources that are being shared every single week at ourweekly.org. My name is Eric Nance, and I'm delighted you join us today. And I admit, I look at the calendar at the top of my screen as I record this, and I cannot believe it's July 30th already. We are almost in August, which means my kids are almost in school, which might be a little bit of normalcy for those parents out there, if you can relate to that. But nonetheless, we're here to talk about all things R and R Weekly. And I don't do this alone, as always. I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Mike Thomas. Mike, where did the time go?
I don't know, Eric, but I imagine potentially like you may be also scrambling to put a presentation together for a conference in August. That's sort of where I'm at. These conferences have come up quite quickly, and it's crunch time.
It is crunch time. Yes, I've been frantically putting the finishing touches on my upcoming talk about WebAssembly. Very excited for it. Had some initial good feedback, so I won't put any spoilers out here, but I got some good stories to tell with that effort. But yeah, less than 2 weeks from now. So as you heard from last week and weeks before, Mike and I will be there at PosiConf, and definitely would welcome for you to come say hi. And I cannot confirm or deny that I might have some stickers with me. We'll find out. But nonetheless, come say hi nonetheless. We're always connecting to the listeners over at these events. And yeah, this will be an exciting time.
Yes, absolutely. I have a presentation, not at PosiConf, at a different conference. It's on the topic of AI. And you're going to like this. My first slide is, you might not need AI.
Good. Hit them quick with it.
Really setting the tone.
You should. That's terrific. Now, but yeah, who knows? Give or take here and there. But there are some fluffy efforts going on in various industries. So yeah, you keep it real, Mike. You keep it real.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. And what else keeps it real? Well, it's organically real in terms of the awesome content at Our Weekly every single week. And as you know, we have a rotating set of curators that pitch in on different weeks to help assemble the issue. And this week's our curator is John Calder, another one of our OGs, if you will, of the Our Weekly team. And as always, he had tremendous help from our fellow Our Weekly team members and contributors like all of you around the world. And our first highlight just happens to come from one of our fellow curators. And looking at a phenomenon that unfortunately can occur when we grab our data from online sources and things get kind of uprooted from us, but the community comes to the rescue once again. This blog post is coming from Jonathan Carroll, who again, on top of his awesome efforts of Our Weekly, is always looking at new things to learn in his blog, and it's always a fascinating read. Well, he's taking a bit of a detour from his programming language exploits in other languages. He's going to talk to us a bit about the weather in Australia. And he's actually looked at this for quite a while now. In fact, since the mid-2010s, he's been grabbing weather data from Australia that's been exposed by the Bureau of Meteorology. He says, don't call it the bomb. I won't do that. But this has been keeping track of weather for a good while now. But there's a bit of a bad news is that unlike other services, maybe we shouldn't be surprised about this, they didn't really have an official API to download all this. So Jonathan would leverage his scraping skills using the various utilities that we've covered many times in this podcast and elsewhere. There are many awesome packages in R to help with web scraping. In particular, I like the RVest package, but there's many others in this space. Well, he's been doing that for a good bit. But there was a recent mishap, if you will, where the service back in 2021, his function to do the scraping was not working anymore. No code changes. What gives, right? Well, turns out as he did a little investigation in terms of user agents and other pits here, there was an official statement that was released. It says, and I quote, "The Bureau is monitoring screen scraping activity on the site and will commence interrupting and eventually blocking this activity on this site from Wednesday, the 3rd of March, 2021. Well, epic fail, right? Ugh, that's not good. And now, rightfully so, John's a little peeved about this because this is from a government site. Australia, like other countries, we have taxes. We're helping pay the government for these kind of services. So, kind of throw your hands up on that one. Mike's biting his tongue here.
We've all been there.
Yep. We've been there with these things getting uprooted from various sectors in government. But the community comes to the rescue once again, unfortunately, where Adam Sparks, who's also been interested in weather data from Australia as well, he discovered yet another site that was kind of filling the niche of what was happening with the Bureau site called Silo. And Adam has built a new R package, which also is actually included in this R Weekly issue, called Weather Oz, and actually has an accompanying paper in the Journal of Statistical Software, the Boot. So lots of effort behind this, which helps have a compliant R package to grab the weather data from this Silo site. Terrific. Okay, back in business, John says. Now he can leverage this new package to have a very handy function called Get Stations Metadata, which he's able to put in the station name and then which API to use. And by default, I believe it is a Silo API. And sure enough, you get a tidy data frame back of the various metadata associated with this. And once you get the station code, then he can actually grab more of the data itself. And this is where he started now updating his functions to grab, the various metadata associated with temperatures and whatnot, longitude, latitude, lots of other metrics here. I'm looking at the glimpse of the data frame here. There is a lot going on here. So if you're a weather junkie or weather nerd, this one's for you. There's lots going on in this space. So he was able to grab almost 50,000 observations over the last 135 years. So there you go. You got yourself some time series, if I do say so myself. So after a bit of tidying up, he decides, okay, you know what? I used to do some plots of this in the past as I was investigating some questions. Let me run these again. And sure enough, with the new data in a tidy format, a little bit of ggplot2 code, and he's got a nice set of charts, Mike. Why don't you walk us through what he's trying to visualize here?
Sure. So it looks like John originally had tried to create these charts using a package called BombRang, which I was not familiar, but appears to be superseded. And now we're transitioning to ggplot, and I really, really enjoy the ggplot code that he's written here. First, he's taking a look at the daily maximum temperatures, and as you said, Eric, there is a lot of data here. We're going back from 2024 back to 1889. So we have a scatter plot here with a beautiful curve on it that shows, has a different point for the day of the year for each year between 1889 and 2024 and what the temperature was on the y-axis. And we have some color gradients based upon the decade as well, which I think is a really unique and sort of interesting way to add this additional dimension to the data as well. And it produces this really nice curve, really beautifully done in ggplot. We're using Viridis to accommodate the colorblind folks out there, so I can't say enough about this. It has a great caption on it as well. One of the things that I really appreciate that John does, throughout some of the other plots in this chart is the use of, I don't know if you would call them like lambda functions for additional filtering, but within the ggplot syntax, you can pass, starting with like a tilde, a dplyr filter statement where the data frame itself that's being used by ggplot is, referenced by this .x placeholder. And there's multiple examples here in the code of how John goes about doing that, and it's a really clean, nice syntax. It's probably something that I don't use enough. So if you are starting to get into a little more complicated ggplot visualizations, where in certain aspects of the plot or certain layers you want to use a portion, only a portion of the data and not the entire data set, such as in this daily minimum temperatures plot that John creates. He wants to highlight specifically in red so that these points stand out, really, really obviously to the user. All the observations from June onward. in the year 2024, so that you can see those really on top of the rest of the Viridis, gradiented points on this daily minimum temperatures plot. And it's really simple syntax, I would say, just this really nice dplyr filter statement. And it's great that we have this beautiful, concise interoperability sort of between ggplot and dplyr to allow us to use those tools together to add these layers, some that have a filtered context and some that do not. Then we move into faceting as well, where he has a daily maximum temperature plot faceted by each month of the year. And one of the nice things here, again, is where we are, again, sort of calling out a specific point on each facet based upon a dplyr filter context, where we're actually slicing the max, the highest particular temperature across all 100 plus years, whatever that math is, between 1889 and 2004. And we're coloring that particular point red, and we're sticking a geom text label on top of it to let us know what year that highest temperature in that particular faceted month took place in. So it makes it really, really easy to consume and take a look at this chart to see the temperatures over time in a particular month, but then also call out the year that had the highest temperature in that month. It's really, really well done data visualization. And he does the same thing with the daily minimum temperature. And one sort of neat visual trick is that instead of highlighting those maximum or highest temperature dots with the color red, as he did in the maximum temperature side, he will highlight those with the color blue, because these minimum temperatures are the coldest temperatures that took place, or the year that had the coldest temperature in that particular month. I thought that was really nifty and something that I probably would not have thought to do, but it's really interesting. And the captions here and really the attention to detail are beautiful, and it's just one of those really nice data visualization blog posts, Eric, that I know you and I really love and appreciate, because I'm a visual learner. This stuff stands out to me. Most of the work that we do for our clients ends or utilizes some sort of data visualization as well to get our point across, because it's one of the ways that we communicate data the most effectively. So if you are just looking to either up your ggplot game or just get a little refresher and take a look at what John has put together here in some of his ggplot work, I can't recommend this blog post enough.
Yeah, it's such a great introduction to a very concise EDA with a novel data set too, and very logically exploring these trends that he's seen as the years have gone by. Can we see like a seasonal type pattern in terms of the variation of these temperatures? And yeah, he has noted that it's been a particularly cold winter in 2024. Apparently one of these lowest points was -5 degrees Celsius. And yeah, that's a bit chilly. And as someone who's lived in Michigan over my formative years, yeah, I know how cold things can get. But yeah, it's interesting to see, again, the facets really show the story of how the spread tightens in the middle of the year and then spreads more out at the extremes, or I should say the beginnings and ends of the year. Yeah, really, really novel use, like I said, that lambda-like functionality. The key point there is these geoms in these data arguments. As long as you're getting a data frame back, you don't have to do this pre-computed in fashion. You can do it in line, so to speak, in the geom, which again is great, especially if you're doing this EDA and you want to iterate on this pretty quickly and with some pretty concise code. So I think it's a novel technique that, like you, Mike, I have not utilized this enough. So I'll have to take a bit of learning here as I revamp my simulation or visualizations of simulations that we're trying to do a better job of these days.
Yep, and you know me, Eric, in terms of code review and things like that and collaborating with a team, I'm always trying to arrive at code that is as concise as possible while getting, the point obviously across as effectively as possible about what it's trying to accomplish. And I think this is a great example of doing that.
Yep, and John never just stops there. He's got a truckload of other amazing posts in his learning adventures. So if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of other programming languages and how, from an R user's perspective, that he relates to them, there is a lot going on in his blog. So if you haven't bookmarked it before, you absolutely should.
In his session info, he's got the OS. The OS says Pop, P-O-P, with an
Yes,
exclamation mark. Pop
that's
OS.
what I'm using on this very machine. Pop
That's
OS.
a Linux.
It's a Linux
flavor.
distribution. It's made by the vendor called System76, who makes hardware dedicated to Linux. So this box I'm talking to you right now is called a Thaleo PC that they make right here in the U.S. in Colorado, and I've had it for about 4 years. Yep, if not
Very
longer,
cool.
actually. Yep. So
Very cool.
a fellow Pop OS user. That's awesome. He's a fellow Linux nerd, so that's awesome.
Love it.
You know, Mike, I always wondered if something was kind of missing this year as the months have gone by. Well, there is a tradition that certainly us Shiny enthusiasts are very eager to see happen, and it is back. What am I talking about? It is the 2024 Shiny contest run by Posit is officially up and underway. And this blog post comes from us from the author of Shiny himself, Joe Chang, as well as our Posit's community manager, Curtis Kephart. And then the blog post is pretty short and sweet. If you're familiar with the contest before, there's not a lot of changes. But if you're new to this, this is the annual tradition where they are reaching out to the community and inviting them to submit their entries of their innovative ways of creating and deploying Shiny applications. There are a set of requirements to be aware of, is that both the data and the code behind the app should be open source, publicly available. So obviously it goes about saying you probably don't want to use your company's internal data for this, but that's neither here nor there. And they also invite you to deploy the application on, this time around, the recently launched Posit Connect cloud service, which I believe just went publicly available a month ago or so. In the past, that's been Shiny Apps.io, but if I'm, that's the usual evolution of an enterprise and their software products, I must say. And that you store the code in a public repository. That could be GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, whatever have you. And there is a set of judges, which I don't believe the names just yet, but there will be a set of judges that evaluate each of the applications based on a set of metrics. I speak a little bit of experience on this because it was like a few years ago. I was a judge on one of these contests, and my goodness, the submissions were such high quality. It was really tough. Great to see the applications, but man, trying to judge these in a fair way when you just want to say they're all great, right? So there's a set of judges to help compute these metrics, and a lot of nice awards at the end there. If you are a runner-up or an honorable mention, and the grand prizes, they have all the details there. Yes, there will be a bunch of stickers being thrown your way. And the grand prize winner actually gets a half-hour private meeting with members of the Shiny team. So my goodness, that's an awesome opportunity in and of itself to go over your app and what you can do in the future. So you may wonder, where can I go to look? Well, I will say that, and the nice thing in this post is they've linked to the previous blog post where they talked about the winners and runners-up all the way back to 2019. I still remember that year very fondly of being like, okay, I'm all over this. I had fun creating a Lego Mosaic app as part of the Shiny contest of yesteryear. That was a fun time. Of course, if you look at that code now compared to what I do now, just don't judge too harshly. But nonetheless, it's a great time of year. We're always excited to see what the community comes to bear with this. So, if you're a Shiny enthusiast, this is a great opportunity to test your might, if you will, and see what you can bring into the community.
I agree, Eric, and I feel like there's so many more options in the Shiny ecosystem nowadays, and so many different sort of branches and paths that you could pursue as you make your entry into this contest. Are you just going to have the repository? Are you going to deploy your app somewhere? Is it going to be on shinyapps.io, or is it going to be on Shiny Live, right? Leveraging the WebR framework. Are you going to use Shiny for Python, or are you going to use Shiny for R, or are you going to use the Teal framework for building Shiny apps, which is popular among folks in your space, Eric, in pharma and life sciences? And they did note that they are going to have a special recognition for developers new to Shiny. So if you are someone just getting started with Shiny, don't be intimidated by this contest. Actually embrace it, because you could potentially get the special recognition for giving it a shot. And I believe that you will find, if you are a new developer to Shiny and you take place in this contest and you participate in it, one of the, I think, sort of where this is hosted is the Posit community.
Correct.
So I would recommend that you ask any questions that you have along the way within that Posit community forum. People are really responsive, I hope, and I would, based upon my experience, I think that you'll find it welcoming. I think that you will find folks pretty responsive to a lot of your questions, especially, within the context of this particular contest and everybody trying to put their best work forward. So welcome everyone, one and all. Put your submission in. I think the deadline is, Eric, when did we when does it look like the deadline is? Let me take a look.
Right, I should know that.
Check this out beforehand. Deadline for submission is September 15th at midnight, anywhere on Earth. So you've got a little bit of time. It looks like we've got about a month and a half here, if my math is correct, based upon the time that we'll put this episode out. So get to developing.
That's right. And certainly kudos to the Shiny team and Curtis for working with, like you mentioned earlier, this is the first time that we're really calling out the opportunity in the life sciences space to leverage the TEAL framework, which is making huge waves in our industry to help build these very comprehensive Shiny apps of a modular structure that are tailored for reviewing the types of clinical data that we deal with on a daily basis. So this is an awesome opportunity to see what you can do with that. And I've even seen others in the community, not necessarily part of pharma, leverage TEAL to do some really fun exploratory data analyses of a Shiny front end. So yeah, definitely if you're a TEAL enthusiast, like that's growing pretty rapidly, yeah, this is a great opportunity to put your work out there as well. And certainly, like you mentioned earlier, for our friends in the Python space, Shiny 1.0 for Python was just released, so another great opportunity if you've been wanting to test your might with the Python side of things. This is a great place to do it. I always think in general, finding a data set or a domain that you're interested in and having an opportunity like this is such a great learning opportunity too. Because again, you're going to see not just your submission being put into the queue, you're going to see in real time as these submissions come in, there will be a post on Posit community dedicated, or a category dedicated to this contest, and you'll see these start to trickle in, and you can get really inspired to see what everybody's up to. So I remember going down to the wire on my Lego one and seeing just the high quality submissions, and have admittedly the first time having a little imposter syndrome, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. But then again, I'm liking it to great learning opportunity, and someone else will benefit from what you're putting out there. It always happens. So I remember getting some nice comments on my submission, but then many others were providing questions and comments on these posts. So again, very big emphasis on learning and having fun learning, I might add.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get my hands on keyboard and see what our team can come up with for a submission. I'm going to hold myself to it.
Yeah. Once the dust settles from the PositConf, I might have some more geeky opportunities to do Shiny stuff with podcasting data again. We'll see. But yeah, we're on this podcast now, right? And we wish we could talk about the rest of the R Weekly issue, but there's only so much that we have time in today, so we're going to wrap up here with a couple of our additional finds that we saw in this week's issue, which again is always linked in the show notes of this episode. And I've always been, trying my best to leverage Git effectively, especially with, nice commit messages, following, standards that we maybe code reviews are going to make easier if we follow these standards of. One area that I admit I don't do enough of is there is a mechanism in Git that will basically check before you run a custom script that might check for various things, such as maybe number of files you're committing, maybe number of lines, maybe the type of commit message, maybe you have a very formal framework of it. you can build what are called pre-commit hooks in your local Git repository to help be that kind of frontline check before you actually do the commit. Well, there is a new package in the R ecosystem called pre-commit, which will let you author these pre-commits hooks from the comfort of your R installation itself. And there is also, I believe, a little bit of requirement for Python as well. So this might be using reticulate under the hood. I'm not quite sure. But once you have everything set up, you're going to be able to do, a very nice, there's a nice package documentation site that we'll link to in the show notes, going from the motivation of why you want to leverage this, as well as some built-in hooks that you can leverage, such as for styling, such as making sure your README is up to date if you're doing R Markdown for your README, making sure you're not leaving a browser statement in your code, because who would ever do that? Oh, goodness gracious. Who would ever push that into production? I don't know. My goodness, where was this a few years ago? But yeah, there's a lot to choose from here. So I may need this. What do you think, Mike?
That's an awesome resource, Eric, and I may need that as well. Yeah, that could have saved me many, many, many times over, so I need to check that out. I found a really, really cool blog post called Llama Llama, Oh Give Me a Sign, What's in the Latest IDSA Guideline. And I could probably just leave it at that. That's such a cool blog post title, but I won't.
Right.
This one is authored by Ken Kun Wong, and it is all about leveraging, open source, I believe, LLM, RAG, to be able to ask questions of the latest guidelines from the Infectious Diseases Society of America. And it is incredibly comprehensive. It uses Reticulate as well to interop R and Python to be able to stand this solution up. And lots of GIFs, lots of content. It's an incredibly comprehensive blog post. And if this is something that you might find interesting in using LLMs and RAG to be able to ask questions or summarize a particular document or set of documents or guidance that's out there, such as the Infectious Diseases Society of America guidelines, I would highly recommend checking out how Ken went about doing this. It's incredibly comprehensive.
Oh, this is incredibly useful too, because in many enterprises, it's not just about trying to be quote unquote future proofing your questions, but taking what you already have, whether it's these documents of like important information or metadata associated with like infrastructure or where you're designing experiments or whatnot. This is a great post that will kind of walk through what is that process of feeding those documents in, creating under the hood what these vector databases they call it. So then the LLM will use that as a source to help answer these questions. So this is a very hot topic in my industry as we deal with, thousands upon thousands of study documents and patient documents and whatnot to be able to effectively put an LLM in front of that to explore what we have. Heck, you know what? Even in the podcasting space, there's been talks of trying to consume our show notes and having an LLM in front of that to maybe figure out, hey, when did Mike and Eric talk about that new shiny package or that new Quartal thing? Boy, that would be the dream, right? To have a little bot in front of that. I don't know.
That
Just
would be
saying.
pretty sweet.
It's all the metadata is there, folks. We just maybe will help to build that, but this post is a good way to get us started, I think.
Add it to the side project list.
As if it wasn't long enough already. What am I doing to myself? And on top of that, I'm trying to learn Nix to boot on this. So my gosh, what am I doing to myself? Nonetheless, no side project elsewhere here. We're gonna tell you about how you can contribute to our weekly itself. That doesn't have to be as in-depth as a side project. We are just a pull request away. If you find a great new resource, new package, new blog post, whatever have you, it's all Markdown that comprises the R Weekly site. So if you know how to put a link in our Markdown or Markdown itself, you know how to contribute to R Weekly. It's basically that easy. We have a template in the GitHub issue or pull request template to navigate you through the requirements. Again, very straightforward. We welcome all your contributions. And of course, we welcome hearing from you as well. As we mentioned, in a couple of weeks, Mike and I will be in Seattle for PosiConf. But in the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, there's a few ways To do that, we have a contact page in the episode show notes when you download this in your favorite podcasting software of choice. You also, if you're on a modern podcast app like Podverse or Fountain, you can send us a little boost along the way as well. We got details on how to do that in the show notes. And you can find us on the various spheres of social media, circles. I am mostly on Mastodon these days with @our podcast, @podcastindex.social. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You search my name, you'll find me causing lots of fun stuff there, potentially. And on that Weapon X thing from time to time with @the_rcast. Mike, where can listeners get a hold of you?
You can find me on Mastodon at Mike_Thomas @fosstodon.org, or you can find me on LinkedIn if you search Ketchbrook Analytics, KETCHBROOK. You can see what I'm up to.
Very good. I'm always, every time I boot up in the morning, I'm looking for Mike's newest adventures. So I'm always pleased when I see that. Nonetheless, yeah, lots of adventures that we have to get on to the rest of our day. But of course, we thank you so much for listening from wherever you are around the world. We really enjoy doing this every week. But we're going to close up the proverbial mics here, and then we're going to invite you to join us for another episode of our weekly highlights next week.